What's up guys, it's Rest, and I wanted to make another video going over all of the Mayhem modifiers. If you watched my previous video, I kind of went over it a little bit in there, but I didn't want to take up the whole video talking about that, so that is what this video is for. If you want to learn about what modifiers that are the best to use, which ones are annoying, and which ones that can make your game just a little bit more fun, be sure to stick around to the end because I'm going to go over everything. So I'm going to start off with all the easy modifiers. First, we have Big Kick Energy, which increases gun damage by 25%, but increases recoil and weapon strike by 100%. And this modifier right here could be pretty good on sniper builds. Obviously, you're just getting a solid 25% increased damage, and the recoil and weapon spread does not really matter since you're only shooting one shot. Personally, I don't like to use this modifier because, again, if you watched the last video, it makes some of your builds very unbalanced, and to me, that's just not fun. And next, we have Galaxy Brain. This is a fun gimmicky modifier which increases everybody's head size by 100%, and it's very easy to take crits, but yours also gets increased, so you can die a lot quicker. There's not really much to say about this modifier. Personally, I don't like to use this, again, for the same reason as Big Kick Energy. It just makes things inconsistent, and when making builds, consistency is key. The next, we have Loot Explosion, where killing enemy has a 10% chance of a large loot drop, and then critical kills guarantee it. This is a very fun modifier. This can be just a solid neutral modifier if you don't want to use anything else, and on something like a sniper build, when you get a critical kill, you just get a bunch of loot, which is always nice. Then we have More Than Okay Boomer. This increases your grenade damage for 25%, and then enemies can drop live grenades. Just like Big Kick Energy, this one is going to increase your damage, but it's also going to put a negative effect on you where enemies can drop live grenades, and this also is going to make builds inconsistent. On something like a grenade build, this is obviously going to make it a lot better, but it's going to make your other builds inconsistent. Next, we have Slayer, where all non-boss enemies below 15% total armor, shields, or health, they glow blue, and they explode into shields and health boosters, you know, if damaged by a melee attack. This is actually a pretty good modifier for melee builds, and once again, if you're going for straight consistency and you want all your builds to feel the same, this is not a good modifier for that. But if you're going straight melee, this is definitely a good modifier to take. Then finally, for easy, we have Speed Demon, where our movement speed is increased by 50% for 10 seconds and its effects stack up to 3 times. This is personally my favorite to use for the easy, either Speed Demon or Loot Explosion. The Speed Demon, it basically just makes you move a lot quicker when you kill an enemy. Obviously, this is going to be very good on things like Amara if you use Spiritual Driver or Zane, but even if you're not, this is a very just good neutral modifier just to be able to move faster. Now, getting into the medium, this is where things go a little south for me. You have all these modifiers that basically make you immune, which basically makes enemies immune to your damage. So we have things like Totally Radical, where enemies are infused with radiation. When you kill them, they release a nova, but they're also immune to radiation damage. All these modifiers are awful, and I would never recommend using these whatsoever. They just make the game terrible to play, as much as I hate to say it, and it makes all your builds pointless if you have one of these. Think if you're playing a radiation flak and you have Totally Radical, your build's pointless. It's honestly just crazy that they included things like this in here. But then we have things like Pain Tolerance. When damaged, enemies gain 3% damage reduction against the type of damage received for 3 seconds, and it can affect stack up 20 times. So this essentially, this is a negative Pearl of Ineffable Knowledge. You shooting an enemy makes them have more health pretty much. This modifier is terrible. Like, I don't know why anyone would ever use this, and it makes the game so unfun to play. Now, we have Mob Mentality, which is actually a good medium modifier, where enemies damage and fire rate is increased by 30% when standing nearby other enemies. This is not that bad to deal with. Some of the damage that comes out is barely even noticeable, and the enemies also glow red, notifying the enemies are near each other. So if it is a problem, you can just watch out for those enemies. Then we have High Voltage, where again, it's the same thing as Totally Radical, but they're infused with shock. If you're playing a shock Amara, well, too bad. Then we have Heal the Avenger, which is actually pretty good. When enemies die, they may drop a power up that will heal the first enemy it touches. This is a very good medium modifier for neutral play. The little thing it drops is not really that effective at all, and you can pretty much just ignore it half the time. And even if it does kill somebody, you just kill them again. It's not like the other one where enemies are just getting damage reduction and you just can't kill them. Then we have Freeze Tag, where enemies leave a cryo orb upon death. The cryo orb constantly releases novas, and cryo nova is slowed when damaged until you kill it. Freeze Tag is terrible. You kill an enemy, and now you're just going to have a constant nova chasing you. It's very annoying, and since it's cryo, you're getting slowed. It's just awful. Then we have Floor is Lava. While standing still in combat, a pool of fire underneath you. This one might not sound that bad if you're moving around quick, but the amount of damage this thing does as soon as it comes up is actually a little crazy. Even with it being incinerate damage, it just strips through your shield immediately, and you just die. It's not a very fun modifier. I can see the argument if somebody wants to take this over some of the other ones, but personally, I think this modifier is terrible, and I would not recommend using it. Then we have Chilling Them Softly. Again, this is just a cryo version of Totally Radical. Terrible. Do not take it whatsoever. And then Chart Mode. same thing, but now it's the incendiary version. Do not take it, it's terrible. And then acid rain, where enemies are infused with corrosive, same thing as the other ones. Do not take it, it's terrible. Now getting on to the hard modifiers, we have boundary issues. So at close range, enemies will attach an elemental beam to you. This one is not too terrible, but there's essentially another modifier that is just like this, but it's just not as bad, and that is chain gang, where nearby enemies attach a damaging beam to each other. This is personally my favorite modifier to use for hard. Just the way enemies move around, the beam never really hits you, and when it hits you, it doesn't even do that insane amount of damage from what I noticed. And if you're playing just honestly just a short amount away from the enemies, the chain never even touches you, and it honestly is obsolete. So it's super good for neutral play. Then we have drone ranger, where enemies spawn a healing drone, supports them, and if you kill the enemy, the drone goes to another target. This was also pretty good. The drone ranger doesn't really heal to an absurd amount, and I know some people love drone ranger for the neutral play, but personally I still think chain gang is better in my opinion. But drone ranger is there if you want to take that, and it also is going to alleviate some of the pain of re-rolling some of your stats, since we can't re-roll them each individually. Then we have laser fire, where enemies have a small chance to drop spinner traps when damaged. Spinners emit rotating elements beam lasers. This one's not really that good. You basically kill an enemy and now you have the sake of just kill you on the ground. It's not fun at all, and I would not recommend taking this. Then pool party, enemies drop corrosive shock incendiary pools when their armor, shields, or health are depleted. This one is absolutely awful. I was literally playing, wondering why I couldn't beat things, and I realized it was this modifier. This modifier basically just makes the whole ground, the floor is lava basically. Now if you have shock and using something like the transformer, obviously this could actually benefit you, but for the most part, with the other elements coming out, you're never going to get benefited from it, and it is so unfun to use. I would not recommend taking this whatsoever. Then finally for hard, we have ticked off, where status effect damage against enemies is reduced by 90%. This one is not too terrible. On something like Amara, it sucks. Obviously, status effect damage is a pretty big thing for Amara, but if you want to take this, if you're not really relying on status effect damage, this is definitely a good one for you. Personally, I don't like it since I am an Amara main, but I could see where it's gonna make, you know, non-status effect damage builds neutral. And finally, we get on to the very hard ones, and before we get in depth with it, personally, I think the very hard ones are absolutely terrible for multiple reasons. There's only really one good one, and even that one is kind of iffy, but starting off, we're gonna do roguelite, and that is the one I don't mind. Fight for your life is removed, but all the enemies drop instant health upon death. This makes builds inconsistent, but personally, with all the other very hard modifiers, I honestly am just gonna let this one slide, because obviously dying immediately having to respawn is a super negative benefit, but all the enemies do drop health, and you can instantly get healed if you just keep killing people. Roguelite is not too terrible of a modifier. It's definitely the one I would recommend take. Postmortem, killing an enemy releases death, which follows you, and if it touches you, you'll enter fight for your life. This one is absolutely terrible. Not only does the death orb have like not a super large amount of health, but it's enough health to where you can't just one-shot it like some of the other skulls in like the events, but this is terrible. If you don't shoot it, it literally follows you forever, pretty much. It's very annoying. Then next we have Knot to the Face, one of the worst modifiers in this whole Mayhem 2.0 system, where critical hit damage is reduced by 75%. Please tell me why anyone would ever want to use that. There is not even a other benefit you get from it. Your critical hit damage is just reduced by 75%. It makes the game so unfun to play. For just general play, this modifier is terrible. Then we have Holy Crit, where critical hit damage decreased by 25%, but the non-critical hit damage reduced by 50%. This is good if you're taking a sniper build, but again, it makes your builds very inconsistent, and you have to keep rerolling all your modifiers, and then you'll get bad modifiers, and rerolling your modifiers is not a fun thing to do. And real quick, I'm gonna plug my other video if you want to watch it. It's gonna be in the top right corner of the screen. I talked about how being able to re-roll your modifiers individually would actually fix this problem, instead of having to just keep re-rolling your modifiers before you play the game. So if you want to watch that, like I said, it'll be up there, and you can go check that one out. But then we have Dazed and Infused. Enemies are infused with a random element, which makes them immune to that type of damage, but they release a Nova. So now we have all the medium modifiers in one. Now all the enemies are just infused with a random element. If you have this paired with the medium modifiers, you're just gonna have a awful experience playing the game. Do not take Dazed and Infused whatsoever, just like the medium modifiers, because it is just that bad. And finally, we have Buddy System, where enemies may be supported by Invulnerability Drone, which grants immunity until it's destroyed. This one is not that terrible, because the drone can be killed pretty easily, but it does make the game super unfun having to just shoot a drone before you can shoot an enemy, and I would not recommend taking it, but if you want to, I could definitely understand why. So with all the modifiers being gone over right now, what does Rest use? If that is what you came here for, I'm going to answer that question right now. Personally, for the easy modifiers, I would definitely recommend taking Loot Explosion or Speed Demon. Those two are by far just the best neutral games. Speed Demon maybe $2.89, but it does make the gameplay a lot more fun and just fast paced. Loot Explosion obviously is just giving you more loot, which is always very good. For medium modifiers, I would recommend taking something like Mob Mentality or Healy Adventure. Those two are pretty much the only ones you should ever take in medium, because all the other ones are just absolutely terrible. Then for the hard modifiers, I would definitely recommend taking Chain Gang or Drone Ranger. If you can't get those, Boundary Issues is not too terrible of one, but Chain Gang and Drone Ranger are by far the best for the hard slot if you're going for straight neutral. Then for very hard, I would only recommend using Roguelite, maybe Holy Crit if you want to try that out. But Roguelite to me is just by far the best. And maybe if you want to take Buddy System, if you're playing something like a splash damage most. But what I always run is Roguelite, Healy Avenger, Chain Gang, and Speed Demon. Those are my main four, and you see those in pretty much every single build. But that is going to do it for the video, guys. It has been a long one, but if you wanted an in-depth guide on all of the Mayhem modifiers and what I think is the best and what you personally just should never run, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you guys are enjoying this different type of content other than just build videos. I definitely want to start breaching out and doing other videos like this. I love doing build videos, don't get me wrong, and they are definitely never going to go away. I like to try other things out and give my opinions on the state of the game. If you enjoyed and found this video helpful in any way, remember to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out, and I truly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.